Next pose that we'll be exploring is downward dog. So first, Alejandro is going to come onto his hands and knees. He's going to take his hands further forward than his shoulders, and he'll splay his fingers out nice and wide. You want your palms shoulder width apart or a little bit wider, and then splaying your fingers out wide, that space in between your index and your middle finger, you want that reaching directly forward, and then splay the rest of your fingers out from there. From here, he'll curl his toes under, and then lift the knees up off the ground and take his hips up to the sky for downward dog. You want your feet hip width apart here in downward dog. It's about 2 of your own fists between your feet. So a great way to gauge that is, Alejandro, will you walk your hands all the way to your feet? So walk yourself to the back of your mat. Put 2 fists together, put 2 fists in between the feet and get the arches of your feet and your fists to touch. Awesome. And then keeping your feet where they are, go ahead and walk your hands back out in front of you, coming back into that down dog. Now, a question I get a lot of the times is, how wide should you be front to back? A great way to gauge that is from here, come into plank pose and upward push-up position. You want your wrists and your shoulders to align and your ankles and your toes to align. So Alejandro is actually going to walk his feet a little further back towards the back of his mat. And so now you'll notice his ankles are directly over his toes, his wrists and his shoulders align. You want to keep that and then go ahead now and take your hips up to the sky behind you. Sometimes this stance is a little too wide, especially if you have tight hamstrings or lower back, then you can absolutely walk your feet closer towards your hands until you don't feel that any kind of strain in the back body. But this is essentially what you're gauging or what you're working towards. With his feet hip width apart, the next part we're going to do is lengthen the lower back. So Alejandro, if you can you bend your knees and lift your heels up off the ground? That's it. And then bend your knees a little bit more. Awesome. And then from here, draw your chest towards your thighs and stick your butt up to the sky. And then from there, work towards straightening your legs without your lower back rounding. So if you'll notice now, Alejandro's hips are a lot higher up. So we're looking for a long lower back, not a rounded one. From here, work your heels towards the ground. Can you feel that in your hamstrings, Alejandro?
Yeah.
Yeah. So downward dog is a hamstring opener. It's also a side waist opener and a shoulder opener. So those are the places you want to be feeling it. If you're feeling any kind of pulling in your lower back, the option is always to keep your knees bent. Alejandro, would you mind bending your knees for me? Yeah. So you can keep your knees bent in downward dog. They do not have to straighten. You're still getting a really good stretch, but there won't be any strain, especially for the lower back. Your head should be lining up with your shoulders. This is the easiest way to keep the neck long. So I'm actually going to get Alejandro to move his head forward just a little bit. Yes, there you go. And so lining arms up with your ears just allows the neck to stay long. There's a last little part here is to check out what's happening with the elbows. For some of us, we tend to hyperextend the elbows, which means that the eye of the elbow goes forward towards the front of the mat. When that happens, if you can see, even in my own arm, essentially I'm going past straight. Not so great because the weight of the body is going to go into my elbow joint, which isn't meant to hold weight. So you want the eye of your elbow to be lining up with your thumb so that there's a soft external rotation happening of your upper arm. So you're rolling your arm out to the side. Alejandro's arms look great, so we're just going to leave him exactly as he is.